This is Between Sundays, and I wasn't planning on recording today, but something happened this morning. It was minor, but something happened this morning that kind of threw things off, and I just want to take a few minutes and talk to you about when things don't go as planned. And that happens to everybody at some point in life. It happens pretty regular, to be honest. So what happened this morning was I had a guest scheduled for my other podcast, Sunday Afternoon Smokes, and it'd been scheduled for a couple of weeks, and they didn't show up. And no text message, no phone call. So I reached out to them. I said, "Hey, are we still on for the podcast today?" And they texted back and said, "Hey, I'm sorry, I totally forgot." And so that kind of threw a wrench in the day's plans, a block of time I had set apart for this moment. And then, of course, that affects the podcast continuance, like consistency, consistently posting, consistently creating content, consistently highlighting people, and that just kind of messes things up. Now, thankfully, I have somebody scheduled for tomorrow, so the podcast I will record tomorrow will go up this coming Sunday, and I will reschedule the guests that I had, and it's all going to be fine. And then sometimes you have things in life that are much bigger than that throw a real wrench into the gears. And, sometimes things just don't go as planned. And when those moments come in your life, there's a couple of things, a couple of items, a couple of actions that you should do or should not do. And I've learned this. One, when things don't go as planned, what you cannot afford to do, especially if it's serious, is you cannot panic. You have to keep things, and when I say things, the circumstances of your life over which you have no control. You cannot control circumstances, nor can you control outcomes. All you can control is yourself. You can control your outlook, you can control your attitude, and you can control your actions. You are only responsible for you. So in those moments when things are uncertain and things don't go the way you planned them to go, which is going to happen, you have to control yourself. You cannot panic. Now, what is panic? Panic is a sudden fright, particularly a sudden fright without real cause or terror inspired by a trifling cause or misapprehension of danger. That's what panic is. And in this particular situation that I had happen this morning, I didn't panic. There's no need to panic. It's not really a big deal. So I had a guest who they missed the calendar invite, and because it wasn't on their calendar, they were just oblivious to the fact that today we were supposed to record at 11. They didn't show up. And, how does that affect me? And I mentioned it earlier, it's not great for the consistency of putting out regular content, which of course helps drive growth in those kinds of things. But it's not, look, most things that don't happen as we plan them are not worth getting bent out of shape over. They're just not. And a little bit of wisdom and a little bit of prudence on your end, on the back end, will help prevent that. I used to have this. I no longer have it. But, if I was recording 2 or 3 episodes ahead of schedule, I wouldn't be in a bind because I'd still have 2 podcasts that are waiting to go up in the next several weeks. But right now it's just kind of week to week. And thankfully, like I said, I have somebody scheduled tomorrow that will go up this Sunday. So I won't miss a beat. It's going to be okay. So I can't get all wrapped up in, that this is really going to hurt my consistency, which is going to cause a drop off in listeners because I'm not putting out new content and my podcast isn't going to grow the way I want it to grow. And then you start going into all of the what if scenarios and blah, 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 blah. And then you start to spiral out of control. So like I said, when something doesn't go the way you want it to go, the way you thought it would go, the way you planned it to go, because you can't control other people and other people's schedules and mistakes other people make, so on and so forth. All you can control, as I said earlier, is your outlook, your attitude, and your actions. Those are the three things that you can control. So, I just texted him back and I said, hey, it's no big deal. We can reschedule. And so I'm in the process of that. Interestingly enough, though, last night I was sitting down doing some work. The way I have operated, my podcast before is that I just invite people. I give them a date and time. I send them a calendar invite, and that's that. And, hopefully they see the calendar invite, but I don't put reminders on the calendar invite. So I went through and I organized some systems. And so things are going to operate a little bit differently this time or moving forward. It's just a little bit more professional, right? After they agree to the podcast, I send them the guest preview form. And then I put, I'm going to put probably a 24-hour reminder and a 2-hour reminder on the calendar, so it pops up to them. And then the day before, they're going to get a personal email from me about a reminder. Of course, they're going to get a few post-recording emails and things, but so it's just a little more tight. And if I had done that, it would have showed up. It would have reminded him, and we'd be recording today. And so it's interesting to me that yesterday in the late evening, I was working on this thing to kind of tighten up my production, and then this happens this morning. And so I put some things in place on the back end to help correct mistakes moving forward. And if you have plans in place on the back side of things, that's the prudence, right? That's the wisdom, that's the discernment and the discretion to look ahead and say, what can I do ahead of time to prevent mistakes from happening in the future, or that I can put in place ahead of time that will minimize those moments where things, so that things will go as they plan. And of course, nothing is 100%. But that's just a minor detail. But, for those of you who listen to my regular podcasts, and I won't belabor this because I don't want to bore people with it because I talk about it. But just for this new podcast between Sundays, 9 months ago, my wife had a stroke, and now she's fully disabled. And you want to talk about when things don't go as planned. Everything has changed. Both of our entire lives have changed. Almost nothing is the same. And we're working on it. We're dealing with it. We're pushing forward. We're doing the best we can. But in those early days in the hospital and after surgery and after stroke, and my wife can't talk, and she can't use her arm, and she can't use her leg, and she can barely feel anything on the right-hand side. And I'm trying to juggle being at the hospital and being with her in therapy and taking care of her business that now I have to close down, and dealing with the bookkeeper and the CPA and the doctors and the hospital and bills, and going, and just, when life is chaos and you literally don't know what's going to happen from one moment to the next. Now, that is a situation under which a person might panic. And if they did, it would be understandable and certainly justified. And I did my best not to panic. It doesn't mean I didn't have moments of worry or moments of doubt or moments of fear. I don't think I had many of those because I just trusted in the Lord that He knew what was best and that He was going to help us through this. So I really tried not to panic. But in those moments where there's utter chaos and you're not literally in control of anything, I did comfort myself with a lot of scripture and prayer. And there's one hymn in particular that brought me a lot of peace and a lot of rest, and I would sing it to myself over and over. It's an old hymn called "His Eye is on the Sparrow," and I love that hymn so much. And I think it's the second verse, maybe it's the third verse, I don't know, but the second half of that verse says, though by the path he leadeth, but one step I may see. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he cares for me. And that was where I found myself. Things were not going as planned, and I couldn't see anything. I couldn't, right? There's no way to plan. There's no actionable route that you can take. This is far beyond your abilities to do anything about. As a husband, as a man, you can't fix it. You can't correct it. You can't engineer it. You can't, you can't redneck it. There's nothing you can do. But that hymn, though by the path he leadeth, but one step I may see. And that's all I could see is just, Lord, you're only providing me enough light for this one step, but I'll take it. I'll take that step, and I'll take the next one, and I'll take the next one. And it's just when you're in fight or flight, because things haven't gone according to plan, do your best to control your outlook, right? It does not do you or those that depend on you. And look, this is an extraordinary amount of courage and character and discipline. And look, I'm not saying that I'm anything, because I'm not. I'm just a man who loves his wife and trying to do the best he can. But if you spiral out of control, you're not going to help anybody, and you're not going to help the situation. So I control my outlook, that I can't do anything about this, but what I can do is love my wife and just be there. And that's what I'm going to do. So I control the outlook. I control the attitude. Like, the outlook is, I can do this. It's going to be hard, but I can do it, and she's going to get better. I control the attitude that it's going to be tough, but I'm going to carry it because that's what I promised I would do as a husband. I'm going to do this thing. No matter what comes, that's the promise you make at the beginning of marriage, for better, for worse, for sicker, for poorer. Those are the traditional vows. We didn't say those. We wrote our own, but they were in there, just not in those words. So this is what I said I'm going to do. And the choice is, I can control the attitude. I'm going to do these things. And I can control the action. And so that's what I did. And so, look, I don't know what you're facing today. Maybe it's something super minor, right? Like me, you had an appointment. It didn't pan out. Somebody forgot. Maybe you forgot and got messed up. Whatever. No big deal. Don't let it rattle you. Just reschedule it. It's going to be okay. Maybe it's something tragic. Maybe it's something super hard, very difficult. Again, hey, just breathe. If you're a person of faith, pray. Comfort yourself in the scriptures. If you're a Christian, get around people that love you, but just breathe, pour it out to God, ask for wisdom, deal with whatever little problems in front of you, take one step, and then do the next thing. So look, when things don't go as planned, and they're not gonna, a lot of times in life, they're just not going to, because you can't control much of anything. But control what you can, and that's yourself. So that's all for now, and we'll pick this back up between Sundays.